I stopped tending to the marriage that I had, the relationship that I built, the partnership, because I started saying to myself, I need to water my seeds. I need to water this seed, forgetting that my wife and my child, they're both planted in the same soil. You know, that's my family.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take a minute of your time to tell you the story of my life.
Today I want to talk about like the dynamics that happen when you're a man and you have a child, and you have to still exist with your relationship with your partner around that, but not even that, navigating your relationship with the entire world. Nobody prepared me for that. I feel like as the big bro to some of the people on this channel, it made me think. My marriage was going smoothly until we had our first child. I'm sure most of you can relate. And the thing is, it's like, what was it? You question yourself, what, were we too young? We wasn't ready, we're not prepared. You can never really be prepared. At this point, like, I couldn't predict the future or make the world a better place, but I felt like that was what was required from me, you know? Like most fathers, the moment you hear, I'm gonna be a father, it's like, okay, attention, how do I go into father mode? You know, that transition is crazy. It's like a level of responsibility that just shifts your priorities completely. So then you start to rearrange your CV, and father sits at the top of that list, and everything else becomes deprioritized, you know, brother, son, husband. And that's kind of what was the cause of the problem initially, because I started to see myself as like, yo, I'm a father now. The father is who I need to be, and everything else is like, I can fall in line when it's required, but nothing takes more priority than father. And most guys watching this can relate to. I don't care what anyone says, most guys watching can relate to that sentiment. And I'll be honest with you, so the moment my child came in, for me, husband became like a role. It felt like a role, whereas father felt like a purpose, you know, like a mission, you know, something that I was ordained to do, you know what I mean? So it felt like husband is like self-assigned. I get to be a husband. I choose to be a husband, whereas father is divine. Do you get what I'm saying? That one is from the almighty above, you know, there's no other blessing. So that's when it started to cause like all the fights with my wife and me, because she'd be like, oh, but like, you're neglecting me because you're spending all your time with the child. I've never understood why women say that. You know, this is why I'm going to be controversial, because I feel like, and this is how I felt then, the child needs me more. The child needs me more. Here's where I was wrong though, because I was like, the child needs me more, but I also say to her, and you've had a lot more years with me anyway. Like, your time is up. It's the child's time now. And that's what caused a lot of the arguments, because I didn't get to a point where I realized that although my child needs me, my wife also needs me, but in different ways. Do you get what I'm saying? I didn't acknowledge those different ways. I was like, yo, right now all my business is going into this, and you know, all the other stuff can kind of like fit onto the side. And I used to say this to my wife, like, yo, right now I can't be a good husband. Good husband right now is over there. I can be a decent husband for now, but then I'll go back to being a great or good husband afterwards, you know. That's my priority afterwards, because right now this little thing that's in my hand requires all my attention. So there's no relationship time, there's no husband time, there's only father time, you know. That's where my mind was, father time. No pun intended. Entendre, don't even ask me how I did it. Father time, you know, that, yeah, but I just wanted to be in that mode so much, and it consumed me to the point where it consumed every area of my life. I'm not gonna lie. You may have seen it even in my output creatively. I was like, nothing else matters. I have to protect this child. I think a lot of that comes from my relationship with my dad, which was great. Like, I've always had a great relationship with my dad. He's always, and still is, my hero. Do you get what I'm saying? So I was always like trying to live up to that, but also we spent a lot of time away. You know, my dad spent a lot of time in Ghana. He still lives in Ghana. And when he was away for that time, I guess I felt like I want to be him, but even better, and not spend any time away from this child. And you know, it kind of put everything else. When you become a father, sometimes you end up losing yourself. And that's a big thing that happens to a lot of men. Their role becomes restricted to father. And there's nothing wrong with putting your family above everything, but at the same time, your job is also leader. Your job is also provider. Your job is also survivor. You know, you have so many other roles that if you're able to do them well, you set a better example for your kids, especially because I have boys. I have 2 boys, you know, and it's at that point I really realized that parenting actually, like, parenting, you could be in a relationship with someone, but when you start parenting, it magnifies the difference between you lot like crazy. Like it magnifies the different ways you look at the world, the different ways you approach the world, the different ways like you want to bring your children into the world. Like it's different discussing it, but when you're in it at that moment in time, you just start to see it, the striking contrast. And it's like, we're not trying to find a middle ground because we're on opposite ends of the spectrum where she's like, yo, we still need a relationship. And I'm like, yo, nah. Right now, I need to be here. You know, I was like a soldier who wouldn't abandon his post. And I'm like, don't you see that I'm defending the fort? I'm holding it down. In my defense, I always say I feel like women get 9 months extra to prepare. I feel like women get 9 months extra to kind of think about how they're going to balance the world and balance this little creature. I felt like I came out of the hospital, like with no idea. I just stepped out of the hospital. Then it was like, how am I going to take care of this thing without dropping him? I remember putting him in the car seat for the first time, anyone that has a newborn. And I'm thinking like, yo, they let me leave the hospital with this baby. Yo, that is nuts. That is crazy. You let me like leave the hospital with a newborn baby, and at nights, I wouldn't sleep. Most parents know this, like any fathers can relate. Most of my audience are probably older now, so they'll know. When a newborn is in a bed, it's so still. And you know, you hear all these things about like infant. And I have a terrible friend. When I first had my baby, he was like, yeah, man, he's got oldest child. He goes, I was so worried about infant cot death. And in my head, I was like, what's infant cot death? You know, and then I kind of like was thinking, oh my God, some babies just die in the cot. So I was up all night, literally just watching him every 5 seconds, checking if he's breathing. Yo, you know? So I was just so consumed by that. So I wouldn't even say it took over my marriage, it took over my life. And I don't regret that because I think it's a process you have to go to come out on the other side and realize like, I can trust myself. I can trust myself as a parent that I'm going to do an okay job, you know, that I'm going to be all right. And I can still be who I need to be while also being the parent I can still be who I need to be while also being a parent, you know? I feel like a lot of women will often say, oh, they lose themselves in motherhood. But no one ever talks about like the guy's side of it. Because a lot of guys, we especially when we grew up in a lot of environments, like, you know, I can count how many friends, like in England, not so much when I went to Ghana, but in England, I could count how many friends grew up with like a 2-parent household. I can count on one hand. It was like not common. So you always like, we're going to buck the trend, you know what I mean? You know? So I kind of messed up because I feel like I got to the point where like I forgot that my wife needed attention, you know? I was like, I need to water my seeds. You know, I stopped tending to the marriage that I had, the relationship that I built, the partnership, because I started saying to myself, I need to water my seeds. I need to water this seed, forgetting that my wife and my child, they're both planted in the same soil, you know, that's my family. I have to create a family home. And that's going to be the best thing for him, for me, for all of us, because we can all thrive in that environment. And ultimately, I realized my responsibility as a father, you know, and this is where I started to salvage like the relationship and kind of put it with my wife and start to put it together. I realized it's not just about navigating the child to adulthood. You know, children are nurtured in the love that you show them, but also the love you show around them, you know? So the relationship I have as a father doesn't compete with the relationship I have as like everything else. They coexist, because that coexistence is really, really what's going to make my son into a G, you know? And what I remembered was that like, I married my wife for a reason. I married her because she elevates me. We elevate each other, you know, and me leaning into that elevation is going to take us all to greater heights in some capacity, even if we're unaware of it. Because ultimately, you're trying to raise a healthy child, but you're also trying to raise a healthy home. Do you get what I'm saying? So I'm just kind of making this video in case anyone's in the same situation. I have a newsletter, for better or for worse, where I write a lot about relationships and, you know, in all capacities and emotions in general. You can subscribe to that. But I just wanted to kind of share the stories same way in case anybody can relate to it and it can impact or inform the way they see things or the struggles they're having. Because I posted on Instagram, I was like, yo, who is like, did having a child ruin your relationship? I did a poll and majority of the poll was like, yeah, it made it worse. Do you get what I'm saying? I recently just, I do a lot of writing. I'm building a publishing. I'm building a publishing. No, I'm building a bookshop. I'm building an online bookshop. I don't know what I want it to look like now, but all I know is I want it to be unique. So I took some of the newsletters. If you got this far anyway, I turned them into essays. Yeah, basically, look, people order different books. This one is about the book you'd wish you'd read before marriage, kind of like my experience. It's not like self-help, it's just my experience. It's a short essay. I write these so they're short, easy to read and accessible. And also, I recently just about to retire this book, meaning that when the copies I have are almost finished, I'm not printing anymore. You can still have them digitally and audio, but I like the idea of making stuff that actually have value in this world and save the environment and that at the same time. I'm actually planning on taking some of my pieces on YouTube and turning them into books and then kind of making 50 copies maybe and giving them out to people. So keep your eyes peeled for that. So I've got that one. And I've also got business tips for the man them, which is kind of like for young aspiring entrepreneurs who want to get into business. I've got that all on my Shopify. See, the other book is hardback. It's hard to get out. Pause. But this one is like 50 business tips. And this kind of just takes you through like the ideas of starting a business. For those of you who follow me, I've always been a storyteller. I'm just working on doing it a lot more in the written medium. So that's just the first of many, many books I plan to release throughout the year. But hopefully this is insightful for you lot, yeah? Follow me on my newsletter. I post more on Instagram than anywhere else. I'm starting doing some lives on TikTok as well. So if you think this conversation might benefit you, don't forget to subscribe, like, smash, how to say, hit the like button, please. Give me some engagement because this channel is so... But I still love you lot who are here.